Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the payoff.
Welcome to episode number 150. Jeff, are you fucking kidding me? We've done 150 of these things. And by the way, for those of you that are new to the show, every single week. Might take off around the holidays, but we've been pretty damn loyal about dropping a new episode every single Monday. 150 of these things. That's a pretty damn good accomplishment. What do you have to say?
We've done a good job, man. Like, this was a joke. This was just hey, let's just throw together a podcast. And now we're 150 deep. We got, Manscaped sponsoring us. We got fans. We got fans reaching out to us saying like they had COVID and they were listening to our episodes like through COVID. And like, that was like, they look forward to us dropping every Monday and stuff like that. Like, we've gotten just crazy support from around the world, even like who would have thought, that we had all that. So we are, of all the week, I feel like the last 2-3 weeks too, in the lead up or the build to pay off 150 has been crazy in the wrestling universe itself. And so between Vince McMahon, MJF is the least like story I'm thinking about.
I totally forgot about that. Someone tweeted about it last night. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, and then I'm like, and then I started thinking, I'm like, is he still hot? Like people have a short attention span. I mean, at some point, like, can you wait 3 months? Can you wait 6 months? Like, when do you pay that thing off? How do you do that? Like, that's a tough call. So, I thought that was funny. Another thing I saw, again, I think it was this morning was, man, I'm like somebody was like, and they were being serious. Like what's going on behind the scenes is more interesting than on screen. Yep. And I tweeted back, I said, it's been like that for like 30 years.
Yep.
Wait, what do we watch? I mean, yeah, the matches are great. The moments are great, but it's like, I mean, what are the biggest things that have happened in wrestling? Oh, it's the screw job. Oh, it's the steroid trial. Oh, it's, like, again, a lot of these things that most of these podcasts, people want to hear about what's going on behind the scenes. So it's interesting that like, Oh gosh, I can't believe wrestling right now. Of course it is. I mean, look, I'm going to care more about what's going on behind the scenes with MJF in real life than I am with the storyline reason why we're getting Brock and Roman again. I just am.
The largest SmackDown rating pop over the last couple months, even years, when Vince McMahon came out for 30 seconds to introduce SmackDown after all the news broke about him. Like,
yeah, so we're not alone with that, right? I mean, right. We're absolutely not alone with that. The other, I think a lot of people agree with that. So even if you say, okay, right now as we sit here, what's kind of the hottest thing in the wrestling business? Maybe not at the moment, but I mean, recently to me has been Cody.
Who's out, right?
Okay, and why is Cody so over? He's over for two reasons. One, he was a VP of AEW that defected, and number two, he has been very clear that the reason he went back there was to win the title his father couldn't. That's all real life shit. I mean, it's not, you know what I mean? Like the Rollins stuff and the 3 matches and the promos and the brawls on Raw, that stuff's okay. But the reason that we're captive, including me, I mean, I'm as into him winning the world title as I've been with any current product stuff, literally in 10, 20 years. I mean that. That's how but again, it's because of the real life stuff. It's because he actually went back there and he actually wants to win that title and what it's going to mean. It's going to be as real as anything you've seen on screen ever. So that's why we're interested about it.
I got to say, I'm disappointed, Tom, that you did not say the reason you watch is because of Brock and Roman Reigns. Like, I feel like you're missing out, buddy. Like, come on. Like,
but here's the thing: who should headline SummerSlam?
Oh, I get it.
You got nothing. And last man standing, I like that because I texted this to you.
Yep.
It could be a real spectacle. Stadium show, outdoors, Nashville. You tear down that building. And those two should just destroy each other and maybe even throw Seth in there if he wins Money in the Bank, right? So I think there's stuff you can do to make that, a really interesting match. But again, this is why instead of having, 20 upper mid-card guys, and frankly, that's what Drew and Bobby and KO, AJ, et cetera, they're upper mid-card guys. And if you're going to tell me, oh no, those are main eventers. No, they're not.
Yeah.
Main eventers are Steve Austin, The Rock, Mankind, Triple H, Shawn Michaels in that era. Okay. Okay. Or Cena, Orton, Batista, whatever. But those are main eventers. But don't tell me that now can they be? Of course they can be. Drew already proved that. Bobby's been over. AJ, these guys, they can be main eventers, but you got to elevate them to that point, and they haven't. Just over the past few years, they have more talent than they know what to do with, and they have a lot of upper mid card guys, but headline box office stars, I guess they have too, and that's why you keep seeing them over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right,
absolutely.
We're here to talk Raven, Terry Gordy. Jeff, I'm pumped to cover this one. Yep. Raven joins us. Awesome guy, awesome guest. This is Terry Gordy's last stand. So there's just some really cool history to this one. I'm the ECW guy on here.
Yep.
Anything that intrigues you about this matchup?
Doing my research. Well, one, I got to shout out Raven because every time we tweet at Raven, he always retweets us or likes it. And so shout out to Raven. And so, make sure to follow him on social media along with us, at Payoff Pod, at Payoff Tom, at Payoff Jeff. Tom always loves to engage and get in any conversations about wrestling. He'll always find you there. So, I think this one too, I had, I've watched very little Terry Gordy. I've watched not nearly as much ECW or connected to it like you are. And so this was one that when we were trying to figure out 150, what we wanted to do, I think you were immediately like, we're doing this. And I said, great, that's what we're doing. And so, because even I was trying to find a match and we're like, what do we do? And this just worked perfect. And so I'm actually really excited to kind of cover this one, talk about this one, because there's not a lot out there. I'll put that out there right now, but there is some meat on this bone to talk about. And we've never talked about Terry Gordy. So I'm excited to talk about that too.
Yeah, this is badass, man. Let's get right into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So there's a few things about this show that I guess I just didn't remember. Jeff, you really never watched ECW TV, right?
Maybe I could count on one hand probably growing up since then.
There was this commercial, and I don't know if they were trying to sell a compilation tape or what the hook was. I got to go back and find it because I'm actually curious now. But I could hear it in my head like it was yesterday, but Joey Styles would be talking about a show, and maybe it was about this show, but he'd be like, and the night that Kimona Wanalea danced atop the ECW arena. And this was the night because at one point there was a power outage. Mm. And so this show had a ring collapse. Okay. The ring collapse. I don't know if I think there might've been something with the power as well. There was a sound system that went out. Then the ring cables broke. So Kimona Wanalea, who was a very attractive female valet, I guess, she's doing a striptease up in the Eagle's Nest, which is where Joey Styles did the commentary. So you had that going on. You had the ring cables break at one point. It's 12:30 before the main event of this show even took place. It was just a wild, wild night, but it was a very well-regarded show. And by the way, if you look at Wikipedia, and I don't know if you were aware of this. I was not. I'll read it for you. The event featured wrestlers from pre-existing scripted feuds and storylines. wrestlers portrayed villains, heroes, or less distinguished characters in the scripted events that built tension and culminated in a wrestling match or series of matches played out on ECW's television program, Hardcore TV.
Mm-hmm.
So, if your lady friend asks you to explain wrestling to her, you just let her know these are pre-existed scripted feuds.
That's what it is.
There's heroes and there's less distinguished characters, and they're all in scripted events that build tension and culminate in a wrestling match. So there you go. There's Wrestling Explained. But I'm glad that Wikipedia let us know that for those that may have stumbled on the Hardcore Heaven 1996 Wikipedia page, but were not aware of what exactly they were looking at. So this match actually takes place, the event actually takes place June 22nd of 1996. Now, interestingly enough, the match we're going to cover next week took place one day later.
Yep.
So big wrestling weekend.
Yep.
This aired on ECW TV over 3 episodes, June 25th, July 2nd, and July 9th of 1996. At the time, they said this was the most crowded the ECW arena had ever been. Like, they even jammed a couple extra people into it. We start out, Shane Douglas defeats Mikey Whipwreck in a singles match. The Full-Blooded Italians defeated the Dudleys by DQ. I don't know how a DQ happens in ECW, but I'd be curious. Taz, the Eliminators, Rob Van Dam defeated... Taz was accompanied by Bill Alfonso, the Eliminators, Rob Van Dam, and Shane Douglas, defeated, and I didn't hear this name ever again, but Paul Verlons, but I think he had some pretty disparaging things to say about ECW after this match that I saw it in the Observer. Then the match that we're here to cover was kind of sandwiched in the middle of this. The Eliminators fought the Gangstas to a no contest. The Eliminators fought the Bruise Brothers to a no contest. Those were the Don and Ron Bruise, also the Harris brothers. And man, they went by a lot of different names and gimmicks. But this was part of the tag team championship match. Axel Rotten and Hack Myers would fight the Samoan Gangsta Party to a no contest. So look at all these no contests. And that's what was being knocked about the shows. There's just a lot of weird stuff. Chris Jericho becomes your TV champion by defeating Pitbull number 2.
Why not? Yep.
Tommy Dreamer defeats Brian Lee. And then the main event, 20-minute match, Sabu defeating Rob Van Dam. And again, the top rope breaks down. And guess what? They didn't give a shit. I mean, did it really matter with those two? They could have just wrestled on a flat ground and it would have been entertaining. So that's the show. But I mean, dude, just a really, really interesting show. And I know there wasn't a lot of build to this by the nature of what happened, but give us a little context as to how we got here.
Yeah. So this one, like I said, kind of interesting how it played out, because a big part of this match was we didn't know exactly who Raven was going to be taking on. And so other than there was a lot more that I'll actually talk about in the aftermath here, that a lot was happening between Raven and Sandman and Stevie Richards, where Terry Gordy really wasn't involved in any of this kind of build up to any of this and what was happening. And so, but one area though, I did want to, because we've never really talked about him before. And so, maybe in passing on this show. So I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about like Terry Gordy's history and kind of, what he was. And so, started working for United States Wrestling Association, the USWA. In 1991, he spent some time in UWF, the Universal Wrestling Federation. He jumped around quite a bit, actually. And so 1994, he was with Global Wrestling Federation. And so, feuded with all kinds of different people and things like that. He was actually teamed up with the Freebirds. Of course, we already talked Michael Hayes, Jimmy Garvin, spent a little bit of time with them as well, too. He was back to USWA 1995, where he was actually a tag team with Tracy Smothers and kind of doing that. And so there's just all kinds of different things that he had been doing up to that. He also worked Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And so he feuded, won the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Heavyweight Championship after he beat Brad Armstrong. There's all kinds of, like I say, I don't want to say like lesser known kind of wrestlers sometimes, unless you were kind of following these territories, kind of following like kind of what was happening. like not on WWE, WCW, things like that. And so it doesn't mean that these weren't, good wrestlers. It's just maybe not that there's some of the name notoriety that we're used to with some of these other people. And so it really wasn't until this show, like I said, that Terry Gordy appeared at ECW to challenge Raven for the ECW World Heavyweight title. Up until this point, he had been getting billed as the international recognized number one contender. He really, up to this point, a lot of what he had been known for was some death matches in International Wrestling Association of Japan, IWAJ. And so, he'd been over there in Japan kind of doing that in 1996. So it's kind of, I could not, and please let us know on Twitter, like I could not find, and I tried digging and tried to find a lot of information out here of like exactly what was the agreement in the deal between Paul Heyman and whatever to kind of make this work. But, there's just not a lot out there, which is not a bad thing either. Like, hey, the curtain still hasn't been pulled back on that one. So that's okay. So, Raven on this one, like I said, introducing his new girlfriend, Kimona. It was actually, what do we got here? That January of 1996, that Raven beating the Sandman to win the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. There was some interference in the Raven's Nest as well, too. So him and Sandman had a lot of stuff going back and forth. He really defended the title against a lot of different people. You had Shane Douglas, Pitbull 2, Too Cold Scorpio, Jericho, like just all kinds of different things happening and stuff like that. And so, and then again, you just kind of get this match. I feel like it was almost like out of nowhere, but that's what we get. So, okay. That's it.
And this was known as Terry Gordy's Last Stand. And it's a fun one. It's a fun one. So if you want to watch this on the network or on Peacock, it is Hardcore Heaven 1996. It's the 1 hour, 1 minute and 35 second mark. I apologize for that, but when we originally recorded it, I was trying to get the precise time. I'm usually more courteous and get on the minute. So 1 hour, 1 minute, 35 seconds if you want to watch along with Raven. And I think that's it, Jeff. Are you ready?
Let's do this, man.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Ho! It's time for the payoff.
All right. We're here with Raven. Raven, welcome to the payoff, my friend.
The payoff, is that the name of the show?
That's the name of the show. Yes, sir.
I love it.
All right. So you specifically said you wanted to watch this match. So why is this match important to you in your career?
The Gordy match is important because Gordy had a stroke or a heart attack, or I think both or something, or an overdose. No, that's right. He had an overdose and he had a stroke, I think. Or anyway, he was never the same again. And he was one of the greatest workers of all time. And because of the way we set up the match, and he was able to, I don't want to toot my own horn, but the way we set up the match, and also with Stevie's help, also having a sidekick in the ring to help guide it, we convinced the world the old Gordy was back, and then everybody's like, oh, the old Gordy's back. And the next week it was the same, Gordy, the post OD Gordy. And, but so to me, it just meant the world to me that A, I was able to work with him. B, I was able to get such a good match out of him. And C, he's like my favorite big man, He's such a great worker.
So why do you think he brought it this particular night?
It was the way we set up the match. It's like all matches are choreographed to an extent, but I try to keep mine organic. Like if this should lead, so if you get lost in a match, like you shouldn't, like when somebody, like your opponent, like if I got lost in my match or somebody got lost in the match, they would be able to see by what just happened. Oh, this should happen next. Oh, and that'll happen next. And it's more organic. I try to make it less choreographed looking, but it actually comes out more choreographed physically because it's organic. Like like if a guy bumps in the center and the next spot is being shot off the ropes, I wouldn't stay in the center. I would bump in the center, and then I would start crawling in the direction of one of the ropes and have my back to my opponent and start to get up. And at the last second, as I'm standing up, I would turn around. Oh, shit, I'm being shot off. That's organic. Choreographed is you bump the guy, you pick him up, you bounce him off the ropes, you shoot him off. One is organic and one isn't. One looks natural. One is just extra spots thrown in there because you're getting from point A to point D. But I'm leaving out B and C, but making it look more natural. But it ends up looking more natural and less choreographed.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, obviously, like I've been watching a lot of old ECW matches. Look at this.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of old ECW matches, and then, in stark contrast in 2019, you're watching some of the current products out there. And that's the word I keep saying is that everything just looks so damn choreographed now versus that organic feel that this ECW had. I mean, yeah, you knew it was a work, but you're to your point, you got lost in this stuff because it was raw.
Yeah. Yeah. It was realistic. It was guerrilla filmmaking, it wasn't on a big budget and that helped, sometimes it's like, I always felt like when they cut promos and everybody quiet, and they wanted bone silence, or deathly silent. I'm always like, it's too antiseptic. You want to have a little noise in there. You want to have a little bit of background because otherwise it's not realistic, but not that you should go looking for background sounds, but if there's noises or whatever, who cares? It's not detracting unless they detract from it,
What was your favorite match ever?
This was one of them. The Rhino Judgment or Backlash or Judgment Day, I forget which one it was, when he speared the shopping cart or gored the shopping cart. The first Goldberg match I had, the double dog collar with the pit bulls. The Dreamer pay-per-view was up there. Sandman, anything with the Sandman's up there. Oh, the barbed wire match. I mean, I've really never picked one. It's always been a handful, but the main ones are always, unless I'm not thinking of something, is double dog collar, the Gordy match, the Goldberg match, and the Rhino match.
How did Gordy end up in ECW for this match?
He was just doing indies,
All right, so I want to go back to the WWF when you were briefly there.
Wait, hang on a sec. Was this the night where when Kimona had to dance atop the ECW building because the power went out or something happened?
I know. I remember that night. I can't remember if this was it or not. I'll have to look it up.
I vaguely seem to recall that this might have been, but it would have. Does that noise? Did you hear a background noise here?
I don't know.
Okay, never mind then. This one of the air conditioning fan just kicked in.
No, you're fine.
Anyway, so I think this was the night. So we went out there. Then there was like a power out. There's something's wrong with the cameras or something went down. And so instead of coming back to the locker room, because the referee comes in and he goes, "Oh, we can't start the match. You gotta, it's gonna be 5-10 minutes." I'm like, Raven wouldn't get up. He'd just sit here. So I just sat there in the corner with peaches in my lap. And we just sat there for 10-15 minutes while Kimona danced atop the building to distract everyone while the power was restored or whatever was wrong with not the power, but I don't know, the cameras, something went down.
Yeah.
And I seem to recall that it might have been this night, but it might not have been.
Oh, I'll find it. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you quickly, you're running WWF. So what I didn't realize was you were working in the office. How did that happen? And what were you doing every day? Like, I can't imagine you suit and tie going into Titan Towers, but what was that like?
They made me put on a suit and tie.
Oh my God. So how'd you end up doing that? Because you were young at that point.
Lawler was gone for a little while and he was gone. And they needed another commentator, and they had already hired me as Johnny Polo, and so Vince brought me in to replace Lawler while he was on sabbatical, I guess. And then he liked the way that he liked the way that I was prepared. He liked my style. I don't know. He liked me. He liked my work, whatever. And he thought I'd be a good producer, and he was grooming me for the booking committee. And me and Stan Lane were the ones that we got hired at the same time to be producers. I think Stan was doing wraparounds, and I think I was doing wraparounds too for the All American show. And they hired me to be in the office to write the second run shows, All America and Mania, to format them and stuff. So so I did that for like a year, but then I was like, I got to get out of this because I want to be a wrestler. But I knew if I tried to get them to let me wrestle, they'd only see me as Johnny Polo, and they would just see me as a manager turned wrestler, and perception's reality. So that's how they perceive me. That's what my reality would have been. So I knew I had to leave to come back, and then coming back still never really helped. So whatever. But the theory was good.
Yeah, and then your office was right by like Pat and Bruce and Howard, all those guys, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, same floor, 4th floor, executive floor.
That's funny. I did not realize that in my research. So how much of this did you guys, call in the ring versus mapping out in advance?
I just set the thing up in advance mostly because I wanted him to, but I think that was the problem with Gordy. Like he didn't really remember everything. I think that's part of the problem with, after the overdose. So he couldn't remember all the spots and stuff. So that's what I was saying about being organic is see how I'm just leading him where I want him to go. I go wherever I need to be. I wanted to be up here, so I went there. I didn't make him take me there. I just went wherever I needed to go next, as we'll see. So he was whacking me with pots and pans, and now I'm crawling off. All right, we're going this way. So I don't even have to call it. He's going to follow me because that's what you do. So he's following me here.
Just hitting you over the head with shit.
Yeah, would have hit me with a chair. And then I haven't seen this match since it happened, so I don't even remember what happens next.
No, this is great. Yeah, anything you see that you want to point out to the fans, go ahead. This is fantastic to watch.
Yeah, so Gordy's just pounding me. I think I'm telling him there something. I got my color. I always like to bleed. I think somebody should be a bleeder in every company. There should be a bleeder. I like being the bleeder. Yeah, I think it had so much drama. Plus, with my selling, I felt like it really, and it always made me look like I was half dead. I'm a heel, so it looks like I'm half dead. Looks like I'm going to get beat, and then I'm bleeding. I'm a mess, and then I squeak by, and it's heat. How
many times?
Right there, I just told him again, or no, I told him back again, and then fire up. I don't know. I set it up in a way that everything's going to follow everything. So, boom, give me a couple of these. And then Stevie's going to come in, catch a super kick. I'll nut you.
How many times have you bled in a match?
What's that?
How many times have you bled in a match?
Oh, I couldn't even count. Numerous, very numerous. So, like I said, I don't know what's happening next, but so this was pretty simple to get to here. For me, this seemed like pretty simple. All right, throw me out, fight around, just follow me around wherever I go, throw me into stuff, beat me up, take me around on a tour of the building. Simple. Now I just called something to him. I don't know what I called. I pull out the barbed wire.
Stuck in his hair. Oh.
I'm going to barbed wire clothes on him, I guess, and he got me. I dropped the barbed wire. Oh, no, I think I wrapped it around my arm. The camera, the video quality screwed up, but I think I wrapped it around my arm to clothesline him, and he ducked it and clotheslined me. And then I told him to put me in the Asiatic spike. So I'm selling that.
So why do you think ECW is so great? Like, if you had to summarize it, why was this just so damn good?
Hang on one sec. So here's Stevie and Nova are trying to pull him off, but they can't get him off me. He won't let go. The refs, I think the ref was calling, to just, leave him alone, get off him. Dreamer finally comes in to save them. Double DDT, boom. He's still got the Asiatic spike on me. Here comes Brian Lee, who's one of my guys. He chokeslams Dreamer. And then Gordy takes him. Power bombs Brian Lee. Goes back to me. Oh, now he's got the barbed wire wrapped around my head. Simple. I mean, to me, everything falls into place. This happens, then that happens, then that happens, then that happens. And it makes it easy to follow. Any place you would have got lost in this match, it would have been easy to put them right back on track. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Everyone's standing going crazy.
Right.
Well, what I was asking is, why was ECW so special? I mean, how do you summarize that?
And then now he's banging my head 10 times in the corner with the barbed wire in it.
God.
So he looks like the old Gordy, but he is the old Gordy because I made the match. I'm really proud of it because I made the match specific, to what would work for him in his condition. Boom, Stevie finally get the Stevie kick. I DDT him, and then we're done, I think. I don't know. Maybe there's a
boom,
kick.
Done.
Yeah. So I get, and then Dreamer's right there to DDT me on a chair. Boom, Brian Lee's back up. He choke slams Dreamer on a chair. And what happens? Now we beat up Gordy, or they beat up Gordy, but I'm too busy selling. So it was the old Gordy. And honestly, I don't know why more people didn't do. I structure my matches to my opponent's strength. Here's one thing. Here's a small note. I'm posing instead of me beating up Terry Gordy. I'm just posing. I'm getting all the heat, and I'm not even beating the guy up because there's more heat in the guy, lording it over everybody. That's just more heat, And then this is where it turns into Sandman. And, of course, there was bells and whistles, dog and pony show. And here's Sandman after me. But now I think his kid's going to come out and stand and protect me. I think this is the first appearance of Tyler. Or not the first appearance, but I think it may be the first appearance of Tyler Fullington, his son. Because first is the wife comes out, Peaches comes out, and brings her son, Tyler. And he goes, I worship Raven, Daddy, you're a drunk. Kid's amazing. 7 years old is amazing. Anyway, so it just one thing follows into the next. And to me, I don't understand why I hate a match that's super choreographed, not that it's super choreographed. I hate a match that looks choreographed. And that barbed wire was so stuck in my hair. It took me forever to get it out. That's why I'm holding it. It looks so weird because I'm stuck in there in all the curls. But that's why that's why to me, a match shouldn't look super choreographed. It should be, unless you're calling it in the ring, which is great. But a lot of times it's better off to just, especially for TV, because you need to be tight on time and you can't really interact with the crowd as much. You should call it in the ring on house shows, because you can interact with the crowd. But TV, you can't do that because it's boring for the fan at home, even though it's not boring to the audience. But you got to play to the crowd, to the millions at home, not the thousands in the audience. So to me, when it looks really choreographed, then it becomes an acrobatic contest.
Yeah.
So it's like I hate double and triple reversals because they don't look accurate. They don't look realistic. I try to keep mine more realistic looking, as realistic as it's going to be within the confines of the wrestling world. But anyway,
as a fan, it looks like gymnastics. To be quite honest with you, some of the choreographed stuff. But I was just going to ask you, I want to understand, from your perspective, why was ECW just so good? What was the secret sauce of what you guys were doing at this time?
It was a couple things. It was Paul Heyman. Big part goes to Paul Heyman. When I got there, though, they wanted it. They thought, Paulie and a lot of people thought that there was no such thing as a babyface and a heel anymore. It was just tweeners, because the fans would boo the baby faces, cheer the heels, and that became, because wrestling had hit a very, very low point when ECW came along. It hit a spot where the business was as low as it had ever been in 94 or so. Right before ECW, there were no clean finishes. So Paulie made sure everything was a clean finish. He started catering to what the public wanted. He didn't necessarily let them lead him or do what they said, but he made sure he led so that it fulfilled their dreams, I guess. What they wanted. but he did it on his own terms so that he was still in charge of the audience. He also lucked into a bunch of great guys that, just were either, they were on the way up. He used guys on the way down to get guys over, but didn't kill them. Like every time a company will finish up back in the day, they'd finish up an old timer. They would use them and have them put like 20 people over. Well, there's no he's getting beat up, but they would, what was I saying?
Just the way that guys were used.
Yeah. So they would use a guy. And so the first guy that beats the legend, the veteran on the way out, that's great. Second guy that beats him, okay. Third guy, now this guy's just becoming a jobber. You know what I mean? And that's what they would do. And they would job out your heroes on the way out. And it's diminishing returns. The first guy that beats him gets a big rub. Second guy that beats him gets a good rub. Third guy, not so much, because now they know the guy's not going to win anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fans are smart to that. So Paulie didn't do that. He'd bring guys in for me to beat once as champion, from out fans, people that the audience, that the fans wanted to see wrestle. He'd bring them in for a show. And if they got over, he'd keep them for a couple more shows and not just beat them. Or if they didn't, he would just have me beat them and that's it when I was champ. And that was really smart booking because it made made Raven more of a worldwide champion because he fought guys, like Gordy and Dr. Death, from outside of ECW. So and he had great talent. Just a wide variety. They had New Jack and Mustafa, which appealed to a demographic. They had Dreamer, they had Sandman, they had me, they had Shane Douglas, they had Taz, Sabu, all different guys. And what Paulie's greatest ability was he was a great coach. And he always likened himself to Vince Lombardi. And he was a fantastic coach. And he knew how to get the best out of his team. And he saw it as a team, too. It wasn't every other company you go to, it's every man for himself. But there, Paulie made it feel like a team, and it was a team because it should be a team effort, And I hope AEW does that. I hope they keep the team atmosphere because that really pays dividends when your talent isn't just only out for themselves, they're out for everybody. I always said, if I can't work on top, if somebody's got a better match than mine, put them on top. I don't want to be on top if I'm not deserving of that spot by my work rate.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because you think about every roster, I don't know, let me say in my lifetime, the past 30 some years, but whether it was a certain era of WCW or the current roster or stuff back in the 80s, 90s, a lot of times guys looked out for themselves. And, this was maybe the only major roster in wrestling history where you guys, to your point, were a team.
Well, it's because they were inevitably, it was 90% guys or 80% guys who had never been anywhere, never been to a territory. So they didn't know that it wasn't like that. In fact, when they went someplace else, they were shocked and mortified to find out that it's not like that. I'd worked in numerous territories. I'd worked for Memphis, Florida Championship Wrestling, Vancouver for Al Tomko, Portland Wrestling for 2 years, WCW, WWE. So I'd been everywhere. But yet I still found myself drinking Paulie's Kool-Aid because it works. And it's the way I always thought wrestling should be, because you're doing a dance with your partner and your partner changes every night, but you're really more like, but you're still a team. You know what I mean? And you want everybody to do well. It's not like what was fostered upon you was not that everybody else has to do bad so you can do good. It's everybody does good so you can do even better.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we appreciate you watching this match with us. It was an awesome match. You gave us some great insight, and we appreciate it.
Cool.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
As Raven said, this was one of my finest moments. He'd been in a fog, but the Terry Gordon of old came roaring back for one last monster performance, and he crushed it. And Raven also said that was the loudest pop ever in the ECW arena.
I could see it. It almost crazy how over. And I'll say up to one for starters. Thank you, Raven. Like great stuff. Provided us, more than we could have asked for. But a lot of what I had read, and even just with you reading it off, like the kind of start to this card was, mediocre. Like, there wasn't a ton. Like, yeah, it was fine, but it wasn't, incredible. But then you get to this match and literally like the flip switch the switch flipped at ECW, arena, and people just lost their minds for this. And so, part of it is the time, like, would we have been, an out of nowhere kind of appearance by Terry Gordy? Like, that's just crazy. You didn't have the internet. You didn't know, kind of what was happening and things like that. And so, yeah, this just fantastic how it played out. And yeah, that the pop that, the reaction he got alone made this worth it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun one. It was those gritty ECW moments and matches, man. It would have been really fun to have been down there regularly to go to those shows for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of how this played out, like in the aftermath and stuff like this, is you got to get the story a little bit, of course, with, you had Terry Gordy actually spending a little bit of time here, not much though, but teaming up with Tommy Dreamer, reuniting with Steve Williams. They actually wrestled the Eliminators. He actually wrestled Bam Bam Bigelow at Ultimate Jeopardy. In this one, it was billed as the second ever battle of the Bam Bams. And so, and these guys kind of going at it in this one. And on that one, I'm looking up real quick here. Bam Bam did beat Terry Gordy by pinfall on that one. And so I don't have a time on it, oddly enough, but it kind of happening, going on with that. And so, like I said here, though, losing the match outside interference because of the Eliminators on that one. He had a kind of brief run as the Executioner in WWF in 1996, 1997. Teaming up with Mankind, feuding with The Undertaker. He came, if you remember, and I had to look it up. And once I saw it, I was like, boy, it sucks. Like,
yeah, they tried, I think Bruce Pritchard said that, they're kind of doing him a favor and there just wasn't much gas left in the tank.
Yeah, and I'll get into that actually. Yeah, a little bit here, but he had the axe, he had the mask because, like you said, they were kind of worried. So he actually made a WWF after this one. He made his TV debut was In Your House Buried Alive, where he interfered with the Undertaker's Buried Alive match with Mankind. He hit Undertaker with a shovel, and then also the Undertaker beating him in an Armageddon Rules match, and he leaving after. And like you said, yeah, it was actually a Something to Wrestle episode. Bruce Pritchard saying that the Executioner gimmick was given to Gordy because the command had doubts that Gordy could still compete effectively, and the use of the mask was intended to protect Gordy. So if that were the case, Gordy's legacy would not be tainted. Had Gordy been able to compete at a high level, then there would have been the opportunity later for Gordy to unmask. It was mentioned that the hiring was mostly done as a favor for Michael Hayes, and so, like I said, that was because way back in the day and kind of coming up, 1994, being with the Freebirds and stuff like that he was involved with them. And so that's kind of why he did that. So, I'd say unfortunate how that played out, but I mean, at the same time, I guess you could pull that off back then in, 96, but nowadays, like throwing a mask on someone and trying to call them something you're not, or something like that. Like, yeah, it just kind of, it comes off as weird. So, yeah. So,
wrestled his final match in 2001.
Was it? And then, yeah, I forget when. Big
like 10-man tag over in Japan.
Yep. And so, and having that. And so, yeah, just gotta, wish, at the time, like I said, he would have never known and kind of what was happening. And so, and it's sad he actually 2001 passed away. So, so Raven, though, on the flip side, though, him on this one. And so this is, of course, you had the, at the end of this match, you had, it was Sandman's son joining up with, Sandman's son joining up with Raven, kind of putting the arms out, doing the pose and things like that, joining the Raven's nest. You had them then accompanying Raven. It was actually Sandman's ex-wife and his son, accompanying him to the ring. There was the we always call it the psychological warfare and stuff like that. Of course, then this got into the really rough angles at this point of just, you had Sandman being crucified, up on the cross, you had the barbed wire on his head, the crown and things like that. It was actually why Kurt Angle said he kind of severed ties because he was just not a fan of kind of what he was seeing and stuff like that. And so at the time, Raven gave a kind of an apology dealing with that. And so and then you had him kind of feuding with Stevie Richards and things like that, kind of getting into that. And so so it was ended up being Holiday Hell, December, actually, Raven beating Sandman in a barbed wire match, to retain the championship. But then you had Richards turning on Raven, super kicking him during that match. And so, and the kind of flock and Raven's nest breaking up. And so a lot of different things. Like I said, there's not a lot, unless you were watching weekly, there's not a lot out there and kind of what was happening with these guys at this time, because they were just wrestling. There was just stuff, they were definitely competing. They were definitely, having the championships and building a little bit of story, but some of it, I wonder, was it kind of wiped away because of some of the storylines people were not a big fan of. So there's not a whole lot out there about it. And so we're kind of looking at that, but it's just, it was still good stuff. I was really glad that we had the opportunity, or you had the, to talk to Raven about this match, because I think it meant a lot to him and it was a big deal. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So ratings are on this one, or rankings on this one, whatever you want to call it. There's not a lot out there. But Raven PWI for 1996 was 37. Terry Gordy was 131. But again, he was bouncing all over the place. So that kind of makes sense. The PW Torch actually had the message, or had a write-up on this one that I could find. It said, Ravens with Richards and Nova beat Terry Gordy to retain the heavyweight title. The crowd popped when it realized Gordy was Raven's mystery opponent. They brawled around the building in early minutes, with Raven taking a beating. Raven bladed. Styles proclaimed that this is the possible resurrection of Gordy's career. Gordy hit the ref, and then Richards nailed Gordy with a super kick. Raven DDT'd Gordy and scored the pinfall. Dreamer then DDT'd Raven. Lee chokeslammed Dreamer on the chair. The four heels attacked Dreamer and Gordy. Sandman made the save with a kendo stick. And like we said, Raven that was then joined at ringside by Sandman's son, Tyler. Tyler said, "Daddy, you're a drunk. I worship Raven." He then did Raven arm pose. Raven ripped on Sandman and then left with Sandman's ex-wife and son. Sandman cried, "Don't do this to me, Tyler," as he returned to the back. So, hell of a write-up. Like this, like you said, this is what they're writing about. So interesting stuff though. Like Tom, I'll turn it over to you though, to give your score first.
Yeah, I really like this a lot. I'm giving it a 7, and I just think there's a lot of historical significance. Again, not a guy, Terry Gordy, that I grew up watching, but him showing up in ECW and kind of the surprise factor late in his career, against the heel champion. I just thought it was fantastic. Again, it's not a 6-month build. It's not a 5-star classic. I get all that, but I just think I think it's just a great, simple story to tell. And it's exactly how a guy like that should have been used, which is he looked great, that if you were a fan, you'd be thrilled to see him, but the younger heel champion retains. And, again, both guys come out looking great, which we like that. We like when, both guys, it's, there's nothing everyone was helped by that match. So I got it a 7. What about you?
I'm right there with you. I think that, it's the, it was kind of, just crazy ECW. I think the fact that it was Terry Gordy and the kind of reaction that he got proved that this was, it's really good, plain and simple. And so, no reason to, not a bad match by any means. It really jump started the card after this as well too. But I feel like, unfortunately, kind of a forgotten about match. And so I'm glad that we kind of put our flag down on this one to remind everybody about it, because it was a good ECW match. You haven't, you would never steer me in the wrong direction, and we would never steer our listeners in the wrong direction either. And so, whether it's, talking about episode, 150, and I'm going to give it a 7 as well too. I'm right there with you, or telling them, hey, don't forget about Manscaped and making sure they're buying their products. I think this is just one of those where I'm glad we covered it. And so, because not one that I'm going to point people to, but it was still good that we covered it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Take us home, Tom. Send them home.
Well, it's the summer. It's bathing suit weather.
It is. Yes.
And,
you got to look your best.
What would you advise someone to do if they had more hair on their body than maybe they should be?
I feel like Sunday has turned into my my men's grooming day, whatever you want to call it. I'll trim the beard up for the week. I'll get the Manscaped weed whacker out. I'll pull the lawnmower out in the shower. I will make sure that I'm looking good for the week, no matter what's coming up. And so, and that is absolutely using all of Manscaped products. They've got new bundles now as well too for summer. And so I encourage everybody to check all that out as well too. All kinds of good stuff, new boxers as well too. I feel like every couple of months we're getting something new from manscaped.com. And so, make sure that you are using our promo code. It's payoff20, payoff20, on their website. And so 20% off anything that you want on that store. And so, and it's not just one thing, it's your whole cart. And so make sure that you are checking out. If you just sign up, you're only going to get 15% off. And so we got 20% for you, plus free shipping along with that too. And so don't miss out on this opportunity. We know we have our supporters out there that are buying their stuff and checking their stuff out. It's the platinum package, has everything that you could ask for. And it's a great deal with that 20% off and free shipping. So make sure to check that out at manscaped.com.
Sunday grooming day.
Sunday grooming day, man. I know. Have big breakfast. Get up, groom a little bit, get a nice big breakfast. I'm a fan of the classic, 2 eggs, meat, and toast, and then just kind of get my day going by 8:30 or so. I'm ready.
Love it.
Good stuff.
150.
150. Do we have another 150 in us? I was going to say, buddy, this has been a fun ride, and we're not going anywhere.
I think we do as well. You can't stop now. It's 200 will be a fun one. 250, 500. I mean, just keep going. There's so many more matches to cover. I genuinely enjoy this. It makes me like the wrestling business even more. I don't know, just going back and watching these, and I feel like it's a good part of my fandom, and I'd much rather sit here with you doing this than, suffering through 3 hours of Raw.
Well, we got an exciting Money in the Bank to look forward to this week as well too. We've got and don't worry. I pulled up our dashboard that we kind of track our matches and stuff like that. So even worst case scenario, we still have about another 275, 300 matches on the list, and so we're not going anywhere. So we're gonna keep bringing all that good stuff. That way, the build, the payoff, the aftermath, all that. And drop us those 5 stars wherever you're listening as well too. Another 150, you can only help support us.
All right. And as always, we'll see you next Monday on an all new episode of The Payoff.